Hello. This episode of Courage Permission Slip includes conversations about suicide and suicidal ideation, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Courage Permission Slip. I am your host, Kea, and today is a special episode for a number of reasons. One, it is the season finale. This has been a long, wonderful season, and now it's time to land this plane. Two, this is special because it is airing just days before the 1-year anniversary of Courage Permission Slip, so that's a big deal. And three, this is special because I'm sharing an intensely personal and painful experience that I had earlier this year. I've alluded to it in some previous episodes this season, but now that it's just me in this episode, I will kind of give the entire story and share where that has brought me to, because it really has led to, or this year has led to, a hard reset, really hard reset for all the reasons that something is hard. And what I will say is that this year has been the year of courage permission slip giving. For anyone growing up in the 80s and 90s, you probably remember this commercial, the hair club for men, and the guy who's a spokesperson, he would say, "I'm not only the president, but I'm also the client." And I feel like that about this show. I'm not only the host and the creator of this show, but I'm also a client. I'm also a learner. I'm also a seeker on this really interesting, intense, lovely, beautiful, but also dark and painful and awful journey that is life, or can be life sometimes. And so there are, every episode that I do, I learn something from my guests. I have an aha moment, or something really speaks to me for something that was going on at that moment in time. And so every episode does that for me. But there were a few episodes this year or in this season, that really, really spoke to me in a dark moment that I was in, or it validated or affirmed some things that I was already thinking within myself. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that journey and share some of those episodes and how they have helped me get through this year, as some of you have shared how Courage Permission Slip has helped you. So I guess it makes sense to start at the beginning. So 2022, so the end of 2021 was really one of my most powerful, successful, highest earning, busiest quarters of the entire 4 years that I've had my business, or a little over 4 years that I've had my business, or been working full time in my business. And so I really was like, I've arrived. Here I am. This is really working the way that I needed and wanted and envisioned that it would work. I was getting speaking engagements. I obviously had my podcast, which was not the original part of my business plan, but it became a pleasant surprise after starting it in the summer of 2021. So everything just felt like it was running on all cylinders. I was doing leadership trainings with really amazing, powerful women, companies that really had a vision and were really bought into helping their employees have a healthier work-life integration, more holistic, more courageous, more attuned to where we are in the world right now, thanks to COVID. So again, everything was running. It felt like it was running on all cylinders. And there was still this little part in the back of my brain that was feeling a little tired, was feeling a little like, what could I do to make this a little less taxing? But for those of you who are solopreneurs, you know that if you don't do the thing, then you don't get paid, unless you have like, what's the word I'm looking for? Unless you have passive income, which I don't really. I don't at all. And so, which, that's another business decision, hard business learning that I wish that I had implemented. I wish that I had been more open to it instead of thinking that I could do it all and I could carry the load. So maybe that's a little red herring to this conversation. So anyway, I felt that feeling, I thought that thought, and I just kept going because it was great. And as you know, things are great until they're not. And so at the end of 2021 was when we started hearing about Omicron and how that people were getting sicker faster. And it was COVID, that variant of COVID was more contagious. But I really felt like I might have been shielded from that in the work that I was doing, because I can do the work that I do anywhere. I can do it in person, I can do it virtually, et cetera, in terms of coaching and training and obviously doing my show. So there were things that had filled the pipeline for Q1 2022. So I'm like, I'm set. So I went on Christmas break, went back to Chicago, was ready to spend the holidays with my family. And the first little hiccup was I got sick. I didn't have COVID, but I had a cold / sinus infection / ear infection. And so that started just a couple days before Christmas. And I proceeded to be sick and got sicker throughout the month of January, to the point where I got to the end of January and was like, oh, I have to go to urgent care. I was trying to treat it naturally on my own with things that I know to do. So that's how sick I got. But backtrack a little bit to the beginning of January, right after the new year, now Omicron has really taken hold. Hospitalizations are through the roof. And so all the things from the full pipeline in December, all of a sudden I'm getting emails of, oh, now we don't know what we're going to do. Oh, now we're pushing things off to the fall. Oh, this fell off my radar. All the things that just generally happen. So for me, my reaction was, oh shit, this pipeline that was full is now empty. I had nothing lined up because, again, if you know what business development is like, it takes time to cultivate things, especially when you're dealing with companies, corporations, et cetera. So it takes time to cultivate, to establish those relationships. And I didn't have anything in the hopper because, again, it was the end of the year. I was already really busy with the work that I was doing, and I had been sick. So all the things that fell through, I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the sense of wellness to start building the pipeline. And so that really, that threw me for a loop. And I started thinking, oh, wow, now I'm starting to think more intensely about that little secret private thought, private feeling that started popping up in December of almost thinking, is this too good to be true? The bottom could fall out at any time. Are you prepared if that happens? Those were the things that were kind of coming in the back of my mind. So beginning of February, I was meeting with my small business advisor to get my plan ready for at least for the first quarter, because of the things that had kind of fallen through. And so I was meeting with him and I was feeling really energized and really excited. And so he starts walking me through, like, okay, how many hours of the week do you want to be working? How many hours do you want to be doing business development? Like all the things that business advisors, business coaches help you do. And so again, I was still feeling really exhausted. And so I remember saying to him something absurd, like, I only want to work 10 hours a week, right? Like I mean, there are people that do that. But for me, that was contrary to everything that I knew, believed in, and had operated in my life up until that point. So I knew it was absurd, but it was coming from a place of a need within me that was being unmet. And not only was it being unmet, it was being intensely violated and dishonored. So my statement of saying, I only want to work between 10 and 20 hours a week, I can't remember the exact number, but his response was something funny, but something along the lines of, oh, so you just want to work part-time, something like that. And so I felt the need to explain myself. And I said, well, advisor, I said, I'm exhausted. I'm really, really tired. Nothing feels easy. I just got off a month of being sick. I have no business development in the hopper. And I'm exhausted. I work 7 days a week. And this was the first time, I have other entrepreneur friends who have shared that at points, and we talk about it and joke about it and, all those things. But this was the first time that someone who doesn't really know me was able to reflect back the absurdity and the inappropriateness of that kind of lifestyle of working 7 days a week, hardly ever having a break. And it was a Zoom call, and the look of horror on his face, I mean, he didn't hide this at all. And that was the first time that it really, truly dawned on me, even though I have known it. Coaches have shared like, hey, you need to slow down. Doctors have said, you need to slow down. But something about this person who was my business advisor, who didn't really know me, to see the look of horror on his face and get reflected back to me, the truth that I already knew, was so humbling. It was incredibly humbling. And it was in that moment that I thought to myself, oh, maybe I'm making a series of wrong decisions. Maybe I have done something so wrong that has brought me to this place of extreme burnout, lack of motivation, the feeling of, I know I should care, but I don't. And an episode that I did with Dr. Sharia Chrisman, her and I joke about that, but I was really feeling that. I was really feeling, I know I should care, but I don't. And so there was this push and pull of wanting to pull back, wanting to take a step back, but knowing that I really couldn't. And that feeling of being trapped, again, coupled with what my small business advisor was saying, was super humbling and really made me fall back in my chair. I was speechless. I was breathless after that. And so that is what kind of started this tumble down this dark mental health corridor in February. And this is the first time that I'm saying this in a public format like this. But it happened over a series of weeks. It started with that meeting, or it became very real in that meeting with my small business advisor. Then the following week, I started feeling really intense emotions, really dark emotions. But as kind of my default activity, I just was powering through it. I wasn't listening to my own voice. I wasn't listening to what my body was saying. I wasn't listening to what my feelings and emotions were trying to say to me. I just would power through, and it's like, well, if I don't do this, who's going to do it? So fast forward to a conversation that I was having with Tony Purry in her episode of We Can't Lock Ourselves Down. And we were talking about this notion that just because things are good at one point doesn't mean they have to be good for you forever. And this feeling of shame that you have of letting go or turning your back on something that you have built over a period of years and then not wanting that anymore. And I've been an entrepreneur for 4 years, and I felt like, oh my gosh, like if I turn my back on this, is this failure? And so that conversation with her was really, really pivotal for a couple of reasons. One, because it allowed me, it gave me a permission slip to come to terms with those feelings that I was having about some decisions that I've made, which I just realized I didn't say what one of those decisions was, but I'll talk about that in a moment. And this feeling of, okay, I've privately made this decision. I haven't told anyone this yet, but I've privately made this decision. So I guess I'll just say it. I made the decision that I was going to go back to working full-time for someone else, which I have not done in over 4 years. But that making that decision led me to feel these intense feelings of failure and shame and feelings like I couldn't cut it as an entrepreneur, led me to have these feelings and beliefs of I'm stupid, that I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't known what I'm doing. I'm a fraud. I mean, the cycle of spinning was real. It was deep. It was intense. And so my conversation with Tony, which happened on Friday, February 18th, was wonderful and uplifting. And still, I couldn't fully internalize the things that she and I discussed, because the following day, on Saturday, February 19th, I remember I got up in the morning because I felt like I wanted to do some videos to put on my YouTube channel and to share on social media. And my husband was getting ready to go to work. I'm in the bathroom putting on makeup, getting, gussied up to do these videos. And my husband, and I'm thinking how tired I am. I'm thinking how just done and over everything I am. And again, this is on the heels of this really uplifting, amazing conversation with Tony Purry. And my husband was getting ready to leave for work, and he said, "Have a great day off." Something so innocuous, right? Just a kind, salutation as he's walking out the door. And when, Beyonce's been singing about, she's got that song out, Break My Soul. And in that moment, right after my husband said, "Have a great day off," day off is the key triggering phrase here. I physically felt something break in my spirit. It was almost like someone, not just a gut punch, it was as if someone had punched me square in my chest. I couldn't breathe. And I'm putting on makeup and I'm sobbing. I sobbed uncontrollably for hours. I went and sat in my office at my desk. My desk looks out on the mountains. I mean, it's beautiful. I can see eagles fly past my window and ospreys and all sorts of birds and wildlife. And I'm sitting there crying my eyes out, literally. And at some point, I was like, oh, so this is how this is going to end. Because I seriously considered, and this is the first time I'm really saying this in a public forum, that was the first time that or it's not the first time, but it's the time that I really was close to ending my life. Everything just felt like too much. I was too tired. and not just tired, but weary. Like I didn't have the energy to do anything. I didn't have the energy to eat. I didn't have the energy to get out of the chair. I didn't have the energy to go get a glass of water. I physically could not do anything except sit there and cry and think about how much I just wanted everything to be over. And so the next permission slip that I had to give myself, and it took me probably an hour to write and then make the decision to send this text. And I'm on a text thread with my 3 best friends from high school. And we all we send each other texts throughout the days and weeks where we're joking and talking about stuff and just, it's just fun. And those were the people in that moment that I had written the text to, but I couldn't send it because of the shame that many people feel when they are in a dark place, that I don't want to burden anyone else. I don't want anyone to know what I'm really dealing with. And so I don't remember everything that I wrote in the text, but I remember saying, someone please tell me that it gets better. Someone please tell me something to encourage me. I feel myself getting emotional right now because that was a really dark day. It was a really scary day. And so I sent that text, and one of my friends called me immediately. But here's the thing. So this is one of the first lessons. That was one of the hardest things that I have ever had to do, was to reach out to people to seriously say that I was considering ending my life. So that was a really hard thing to do. And I'm eternally grateful to that group of friends. You know who you are, because they saved me that day. I was considering a permanent solution to a temporary problem, to a temporary feeling. And so that first friend who called me and sat on the phone with me and just helped me talk through live what I was experiencing. And we talked about action items that I could take. We broke down the big feelings, the big emotions. We broke them down into little nuggets, little things that could be done to turn the page. And so I walked away from that conversation with an action plan. And I ended up talking with some of the other friends later in the day. But the next thing that I had to do was then tell my husband. I didn't want to do that, because who wants to be seen differently than how people see you? Who wants to be seen as fragile? Who wants to be seen as, and these are the stories that we tell ourselves, who wants to be seen as what I think is fragile? Who wants to be seen as what I believed as I can't handle my shit? Who wants to be seen as the person that has to ask for help? I hear this all the time in my coaching practice. People hate asking for help. And I'm the president of that club. And I knew that I had to ask for help in those moments because of what the alternative was that I was seriously considering. So that was the next permission slip that I had to give myself, was to ask for help and to speak my truth in the darkest moment of my life. And to then be able to say what I needed and to state the things that I thought or that I felt would help me start getting to the other side. So in this moment, or after this moment of darkness, I really had to sit down with myself and do the exercises that I give my clients. Do the exercise with the clients who are in pain and who feel like they need to make a change in their life. So what did I do? The first is that I had to allow myself the space and time to listen to and really hear my own voice, to really hear what wasn't working for me and why it wasn't working. So allowing myself to listen to that and then to say what was not working for me and why it was not working. Then I had to really take time to tune into my core values and core needs in that moment, and what needs and values were being honored and what needs and values were being dishonored or violated, or where I was betraying myself. And what's interesting is that when I did that examination, my values didn't change. It's just the way that I was embodying them, or that I felt like I needed to embody them, was changing. So I had to rewrite out my values. And literally just in January, I had done my plan for the year. I had established my themes and my word of the year and how I was going to embody my values. And when I went back and looked at that list, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to embody my values in a completely different way to help me meet the immediate needs that I have right now. I need to feel like things are easy. I have a need to experiment in my career without it being attached to a paycheck. I feel like I need a full-time job working for someone else so I can just sit back, not to say I want to be a slacker in this new full-time job that's going to be amazing, that is actually going to be me doing some very similar things to what I'm doing in my entrepreneurial world right now. But these are the things that I had to examine and write out first. So again, going back to these steps, I had to look at what needs and values were being dishonored, what was working for me, what wasn't working for me. And then I had to turn that around to say, or to state, what experience was I seeking in this next chapter? How did I want life to be and feel? What did I want my day-to-day experience to be like that it wasn't right now? And then what are the things, all the options? I didn't have to go back to work full-time for someone else, but I also felt like I needed to do that to have a break, to not have so much pressure be on me all the time to hustle and build my business and get clients and, and do all the things that are required of business owners to do. Because, hey, having your own business is hard. There's taxes, there's, things that you have to do with the IRS. There are things that you have to do, like systems that you have to put in place. And when it's just you, when you're also trying to be like inspired and enlightened, and I'm not trying to be down on entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is really great at times, but it just wasn't great for me anymore, at least not in the formula that I've been having it. And so the lovely thing is that this full-time job that I'm taking still allows me to do my podcast, which is one of the few things within my business that is still giving me a great deal of joy. But anyway, so I had to take a look at what experience or experiences I was seeking, and then determine, I have a whole huge list, a page full of things that I could do that would allow me to have the experiences and the feelings and the emotions that I have been missing for the last several years. So, and this was in combination with the conversation that I had with my friends on that dark day, was then I had to decide what were the smallest things that I could do to start creating different results, feelings, outcomes, experiences for myself. And in the process of all of this, it still took me a long time, I would say over 2 months, to finally say out loud to someone else that I was going to go back to working full time for someone else. Because again, there are these intense feelings of failure and that I wasn't good enough, that I just wasn't enough, period, right? I wasn't good enough at what I did. I didn't know enough. I wasn't savvy enough. And it took me several months to heal from that. I haven't fully come to terms with the positives of my decision, but I'm not in the place that I was in February and March of 2022. That I know for sure. And and another episode that was really helpful, actually 3 episodes that were really helpful for me in this period of really being able to listen to, own, come to terms with where I was, the conversation that I had with Heather Urofsky. This is not my dream anymore. And her and I were talking about this whole notion of, was everything that I did worth it? And I remember when I was having that conversation with her, that's what I was thinking, like, is everything that I've done a huge waste? Have I just wasted all of these years of my career for something that, quote unquote, isn't working? But success looks different to different people at different times. And when I take a look back at all the things that I've been able to do over these last 4 to 5 years, I have had a lot of success. I have had a lot of wins. I have made some great impact on people, individuals, people at companies. And that's not me being cocky. That's me really owning my gifts. That's really owning the benefit of the work that I do and the space that I take up in this world. So that was an episode that was really helpful for me and really spoke to me. The After Hours episode that I did with Krista Shelton and Jess Wass, the title was Whose Life Are You Living? Where we talked about, I mean, we covered a lot of ground in that episode, but we talked about, and this was actually spurred by a conversation that I had with another entrepreneur who had decided to go back to working full time for someone else, in that our careers really should be seen as a series of projects. We are not one thing all the time. We are many things, and we have many different interests, and there are things in some periods of our lives that are going to work better than in other periods. There are times where certain career paths and responsibilities are going to resonate with us more. They're going to fulfill us more than they may at other parts of our lives. And that's really where I'm at. I need a different quality of life at this point in time. So that conversation was really helpful. And the conversation that I had with Lizzie Alberga about there's no step too small. And we talked about how the darkest times in our lives lead to the biggest breakthroughs. They lead to the biggest answers. And she said, it's in the darkness that we seek solutions. And so that's why I go back to the significance. Now, it didn't feel significant at that time, but looking back on it, because I'm closer to the end of the tunnel than I am at the beginning, it was that dark period that really made me stop and say, I have to do something different now. I have to make some different decisions for myself. And it's okay that this is not for me anymore. And the beautiful thing is, I don't have to stop. I don't stop everything. I'm still going to be doing my show. I'm still going to be able to impact people in ways that really fulfill me, but are also helpful and of service to other people. So, but that conversation really, really helped me to, it gave me permission to want what I wanted. So those were some significant moments in a period of my life that was one of the darkest and hardest ever. And what I want to say is that if you are having a dark moment, if you are feeling hopeless, if you are feeling like there is no way that this is going to get better, please hear me when I say this. And I hope that this does not sound trite or diminishing for whatever you are going through, because your experience is your experience. But I can say with certainty that it does get better. Not all at once. It is a series and a period of you just getting up and making the commitment to yourself to take one step, to do one thing at a time, to keep showing up for just one more hour or another half of a day. And what I can say is, and even as I was taking those steps, I did have those moments where I was like, this is not working. This is not working. This sucks. I'm never going to get to the other side of this. And then one day I woke up and I was like, oh, the needle has moved. I don't feel as bad as I did 3 weeks ago. I don't feel nearly as bad as I felt a month and a half ago. It does get better. You don't recognize it as it's getting better, but one day, I promise you will wake up, or you will have that realization that, oh, I see a little more blue sky right now. Or, oh, I see the light at the end of the tunnel is just a little brighter. And I will say, so this was back in February that these feelings really came on strong. I didn't realize that I had gotten to, or that I was getting to the other side of all of that mess. That's another episode that was really powerful, was the conversation with Jess Wass of all change is a mess in the middle. It was a mess for months, from February until about, I would say the beginning of June was when I was able to look up and say, oh, okay, I'm figuring this out. I feel better. So it's not going to be overnight, but you have to be willing to stay in the game. So if you've listened to this or you follow me in any medium, you know that I'm a big sports fan. I played sports my entire life growing up. So I love a lot of like sports metaphors. You've got to stay on the field. You have to stay on the field. When you think about giving up, please know that even if you don't hear it, know that there is someone who is watching you and learning from you and being inspired by what you're doing, and they're rooting for you. And that actually came up in my conversation with Tony too, because we were talking about the decision to go in a different direction and how there's a fear of looking fickle, that there's a fear of looking like you don't know what you're doing or that you don't know what you want. And she talked about the prisoner of perception and how even if you don't see it or feel it, know that people are rooting for you, that they are seeing the things that you're doing. They're hearing you talk about the things that you're doing. Even if they don't feel significant for you, they're significant for someone else who is questioning themselves. And so she talked about how it's important to remember that people are cheering for you. People are rooting for you. People want the best for you. So in those moments where you feel like tapping out, as much as you can, like put it on a Post-it or write it somewhere where you can see it or come back to it, to know that there is someone in your corner who is rooting for you to get to the other side. They are inspired and encouraged by the way that you are showing up for life. If you don't feel like showing up, think about who you can reach out to that can help you the way that my friends helped me. That can help you in the way that my husband and my sister helped me. It didn't, just me reaching out for help on that one day didn't do the trick. I mean, there was a series of things that I had to do. And so I'm really thankful for all of those people who were in my corner when I needed the most, but didn't want to ask for help. And like I said, because I had the courage, I gave myself permission to raise my hand just a little bit to say, I'm ready to tap out. There were other people who were ready to lift me up and help me to stay on the field. Some other permission slips that I had to give myself in the process of this decision to go back to working full-time for someone else. I had to give myself permission to disappoint other people more than I disappointed myself. I could not, in good conscience, keep setting my soul on fire to please other people or to not rock the boat too much with other people. And that actually, Julie Ha Trong and I talked about that in her episode of I'm a Hot Mess. So again, I'm not only the host, but I'm also the client of these conversations. I'm the beneficiary of these conversations that I have with my guests. And this is also why, and I've said this on several other episodes, this is why I started this show, because there is someone, and someone is me. There is someone who has goals and dreams and needs and visions for their life, but sometimes the fear is too important. I was afraid of looking like, or I was afraid of all of my efforts being a waste. I was afraid of looking like I didn't know what I was doing. I was afraid of looking like I was a failure. I almost let those fears win. But I decided to let my needs and my goals and my visions for this period of my life be more important than the fears were. So I did have to allow myself to disappoint other people over disappointing myself. I had to give myself permission to let go of the life that I had to allow in the life that was waiting for me, the life that I feel like I want and need right now. And part of that includes taking a break from the hustle and the grind that comes with being an entrepreneur and being on social media. It's a lot. I'm not going to sit here and play myself and say that it's not hard. It is. But again, I also, and I talk about this a lot as well, I had to give myself permission to listen to my own voice and to not keep powering through because of the fear of how it would look if I took a step back, went in a different direction. I had to allow myself to face the feelings of failure. I had to allow myself to face the shame that I felt of going in a different direction, going back to corporate America. There's a lot of shame that comes with that. And the values and the needs and the priorities that I have and the experiences that I'm seeking now are more important than trying to keep up that facade. And I also have to give myself permission to realize that this revelation may turn people off, may make people think, oh, she's a fraud. I mean, you may be thinking that. And also, I'm proud of myself for the journey that I've been on, the admissions that I've allowed myself to make, the help that I've asked for, and I'm proud of the hard reset that is on the horizon. So if you are sitting in a place of judgment right now, um, I invite you to explore what's going on within you that is making you judge me right now. So, but I fully recognize that me making this admission publicly can create a backlash. I fully recognize that. I own that. And I'm okay with that, because me sugarcoating my experience doesn't serve anyone, and most certainly doesn't serve myself and my journey. I was listening to Glennon Doyle's podcast, We Can Do Hard Things, the episode that she did with Cheryl Strayed of Don't Let Your Dreams Ruin Your Life. Hi. I really resonated with the title, which is why I made a beeline to listen to that. I also really like Cheryl Strayed, and I also really like Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach. They're my friends in my head. But anyway, that was a really powerful episode where they were talking about this whole, like, being able to admit what you want and letting go of the fear of not being great, and letting go of the fear and the shame that come with letting go of ambition, and how ambition can cost you sometimes. So here I am putting it out there into the world. And the other thing that was really powerful in that episode where Cheryl Strayed was talking about how she decided to ruin her life to honor her mother who had passed away. And she eventually came to the realization that my mother loved me too much to not live up to the way that she raised me to live. And I think about that as I think about the decisions that I was considering making, that there are people who love me too much and have poured into me too much for me to make such a permanent and devastating decision. Because I know I still have work to do in this world, and that work can be manifested in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be with me having working full-time in my own business. So I shared a lot more than I expected to share in this episode, but I do hope that these final thoughts for this season, and I will be back. I've already got invitations and conversations that are squared up for the next season. So I will be back. I just need time to work through this reset that I'm going through. But I do, with all my heart, hope that something that I shared from my journey from this year of our Lord 2022, I hope something that I have shared has given you a permission slip to go in a different direction, or to go in no direction, to do your own hard reset, or to keep moving forward, or to speak your truth. I hope that what I have shared, and me putting myself out here, potentially to my own detriment, gives you permission to do what you need to do, and to do what's right for you, because what's right for you is not right for someone else, and what's right for someone else is not right for you. Oh, by the way, Lizzie and I talked about that too, that someone else's chapter can't be your chapter. So I really honest to God, hope that something that I shared here is helpful for you, gives you courage, helps you make a decision in your life to do something differently so that you can have a different result or to feel differently, whatever that is. I pray that this conversation that I had with you today gives you the permission to do that. So with that, I will wrap today's season finale of Courage Permission Slip. Please go back and listen to old episodes, the episodes that I mentioned, the episodes that the listener spotlights have mentioned, so that you can get the courage that you need to make your dreams and your goal and your vision and your values and your needs bigger and more important than the fears and the doubts and the worries that are plaguing you in this moment. With that, thank you again for tuning into this powerful season of Courage Permission Slip. If you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel so that it makes it easier for people to find this content. And if you are listening on your favorite platform, please make sure that you rate and review so that you also make it easier for people to find and enjoy this content as well. Until the next season, I hope that you enjoy this episode, and thank you so much for tuning in and following along this season of Courage Permission Slip. Until the next time.